Africa continues being among the most infected continents with a soaring number of HIV positive people. On the eve of World AIDS Day, we look at some progress in addressing these continuing challenges with projects scientists embarking on. The 9th edition of the L'Oreal UNESCO for Women in Science program gives us a springbook for our conversation. Our young scientist from Stellenbosch in Cape Town is among this year's fellows for her work looking at the relationship between immune systems and the virus in HIV positive children. Shalena Naidoo joins me in studio to share her planned research, and via Skype in Paris I am joined by Alexandra Palt, who is the Executive Vice President for the L'Oreal Foundation. Ladies, thanks so much for your time. I mean, every year when we look at World AIDS Day, we ask the question, I mean, how far have we come? Have we moved the needle in addressing the rising incidences of this disease amongst our people? In your view, how far have we come, Shalena?
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure being here. I would just like to take the opportunity to reiterate the major global public health issue HIV/AIDS poses. We're currently sitting at 37 million people globally infected with the HIV virus, and a large portion of those, about 20 million, sits in sub-Saharan Africa, and that is mainly constricted to the southern African region. South Africa has one of the biggest and largest epidemic that we are dealing with, and children serve as a major vulnerable population. In South Africa alone, we have about 280,000 children between the ages of 0 and 14 years that are infected with the virus. We have made great strides, though. We have one of the largest antiretroviral treatment programs. We have decreased the number of HIV incidences in children. We have decreases mother-to-child transmission. However, there are some consequences with long-term therapy. And there are a number of immune aberrations or abnormalities that persist in children that are on long-term therapy.
Right, and this is the basis on which you formed your research. So
Yes.
looking at the long-term effects of children.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit more about that.
So my research basically focuses on the SURE trial. So the SURE is the children with HIV initiated therapy within 6 months of age. And this is the same cohort that has shifted WHO guidelines for the treatment of children to a very early stage to prevent morbidities and mortality rates in these kids. My work is really trying to delineate the immunological aberrations that may persist in the light of this early and long-term therapy.
I mean, Alexandra, just to bring you in here, I mean, people think of L'Oreal, we think of makeup, we think of your infamous tagline, because I'm worth it. L'Oreal and HIV/AIDS, what is the connection here, and why are you in this space?
Good morning. Thank you for having me. Yes, the connection is the women scientists. So for the last 20 years, L'Oreal and the L'Oreal Foundation is supporting women scientists all over the world. We believe that the world needs science and science needs women. And so for the last 20 years, we have awarded more than 3,000 women all around the world, either through international awards or through regional or national fellowships, to encourage them to go into science and to contribute to resolve the world's most pressing challenges, such as Shalena is doing it.
And some of that criteria you have used in the years gone by in awarding some of this support to the women you have done so to already.
The criteria is always scientific excellence, of course. The criteria for awarding women scientists in order to show how competent, how to legitimate what is their contribution to the world is scientific excellence. So all our doctoral, postdoctoral fellows or international awards are selected by independent juries all over the world who are impressed and have evaluated the scientific level of performance. Of course, also with the willingness to contribute to society, to transmit to the next generation, to transfer knowledge, and to encourage the next generation of girls to engage in scientific studies.
Right. Shalena, just to bring it back to you, I mean, what are you hoping some of your research can achieve? How are you hoping that it can make a difference?
Well, a longitudinal picture of immunological landscape within HIV-infected children is not clearly defined in the South African context. And so my research is hoping to delineate some of those factors and account for some of the morbidities or non-AIDS defining morbidities such as cardiovascular diseases, metabolic diseases that could surface as these children that have been treated early approach as adolescents. So my work is really structured around two things: identifying the impact of treatment and then identifying what is actually causing these persistences. And so the major barrier to finding a cure is that the viruses actually present hideouts, or they sit in sanctuary sites, which is not really targeted by antiretroviral therapy, or the immune system cannot see it. And so really trying to identify biomarkers that could help us find these hideouts of the virus, and then seeing what the relationship is with the immune system would potentially bring us closer to delineating what are the factors that are contributing to distracting us from finding a cure. And so potentially finding biomarkers that will pinpoint us to where these reservoirs are, or potentially what are the cells that are harboring these HIV DNA. And so these produce sort of the basis of knowledge that other studies could build on towards HIV cure.
Sure. And just a parting question, Alexandra, I mean, Shalena here in the studio has blown me away with her intelligence and her passion towards committing positively towards this cause. For you, what made her a standout candidate?
Well, we always take into account, as I told you, the scientific value is taken into account by a jury. And then Shalena, of course, she has also a personal story and an achievements of how to overcome obstacles. And obstacles are numerous for scientific women, especially minority women all around the world. So there is definitely an issue of personal achievement of overcoming barriers, which are very, very important for women scientists still, unfortunately, all over the world, and where we need role models of every age for the next generation of girl scientists.
Certainly, I agree, but we'll have to leave it there. Of course, that was Shalena Naidoo, who is joining us in studio, and Alexandra Palt, who is the Executive Vice President for the L'Oreal Foundation.